What up,
We're back.
Solo?
We're back. I feel like it's a quick turnaround time compared to the last time.
Because it was.
Yeah.
It was. We usually don't do them back to back like this, but we have an amazing topic today, though.
Yeah.
Not that we don't have, we have amazing topics all the time, right? But this one is an amazing one.
This one is awesome because I feel like these folks, these three, are like truly inspirational to me. Having gone through some of the roughest, toughest things that I think that someone could go through, and coming out the other end just as incredible as they have, it's inspiring.
I agree. I agree 100%. Well, welcome everyone to Keeping You Wise by Keeping It Real, where we bring authentic and real conversations to fuel the soul that you can share with others. Welcome to our 14th episode.
Is this 14?
Where we will discuss. It is 14, sir. It is 14, and we're going to discuss today gifts that keep giving, donor awareness exposed. My name is Paula Bell, if you are not aware who I am, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host Solo. So before we jump into this amazing topic, because I want to get right to it, a couple of disclaimers so everyone's aware. We are not therapists and will not offer any medical advice whatsoever. We are not trained, qualified, or able to diagnose or treat any form of mental illness or disorder. And some of our topics may be triggering. The purpose of this video cast is to have real and authentic conversation that provides wisdom to all. Please interact with us via the chat. Interact now. Let us know where you are viewing us from. And if you have any questions or comments as you listen to the video cast, please, by all means, drop it, whether you're on YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn. We would definitely love to hear from you. Now, typically, these video casts go for about 60 minutes, but depending on audience engagement and what we have going on, it may go longer. They are real laid-back segments, and we just want to have that open, honest, and authentic conversation. These segments are aired monthly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notifications to know when we go live. And we typically have guest speakers that speak on a wide array of topics from mental health, self-improvement, entrepreneurship, career development, and more. So, Solo, who do we have joining us today?
Paula, you're making that sound good. Have I told you that? Like, you make that piece sound good. Like, disclaimers are a rough thing to get through, but you make it sound good. And I appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate that you appreciate me making it sound good.
Right? So we have 3 guests today. Our first guest, Bridget Edwards, awesome. Lives and works in Des Moines, Iowa. Her family includes her wife, Mary, 2 daughters, Addie and Eliza, 6.5 and 3. And I know about that 3-year-old life. It's a great one and a rough one at the same time. She's a communication strategist by day in the corporate world and a very active mom all hours of the day and night because momming good doesn't quit. So Bridget Edwards is our first guest. You want to bring Bridget on? What's up, Bridget?
Thanks for having me.
I missed all of it.
Thunderous applause. I love it.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Jean Dickey. Jean is a 2-time kidney transplant recipient, an analytical, organized, and detail-oriented person who has passion for finding success, valuable, and quality solutions for business improvements. Both in his professional and personal life, he works as an advocate for patients like himself and for the importance of organ donation. He lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and professionally is an executive director for the National Kidney Foundation, serving the Dakotas, Iowa, and Nebraska, which is awesome. In his personal life, he has started doing public speaking about the transplant process, being an expert himself, and the importance of mental health and the importance of empowering patients to share their stories and be honest with themselves. Also trying to bring awareness to the importance of organ donor. Jean is an incredible person, and Jean joins us on the stage now as well. 2-time kidney transplant, huh, Jean?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. You're a good man. I appreciate you. Last but not least, Khalil Adams, a former commercial actor and model, found himself thrust in an unexpected journey of resilience and inspiration. Truly. Growing up in Des Moines, Iowa, Khalil has had a passion for performance and uplifting people, entertaining people, making them feel great, entertained, and just really being a good thing in this community. In 2017, at just 21, Khalil faced a sudden heart failure. He had a stroke and other serious health issues. After enduring years with an external life support device, he finally received his life-saving heart in 2023, so only last year. Despite the challenges, Khalil's spirit remains unyielding. You'll see it. His experience fuels his desire to inspire others, showing them that even in life's toughest moments, it's possible to find strength and resilience within, which is why I love this guy. Today, Khalil shares a story, reminding audiences of the power of perseverance and the resilience of the human spirit. Khalil, join us on the stage.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Did I do you justice, Tim? Did I do
That
that? I tried,
That was
man.
amazing.
I tried,
Wow.
man. I tried. But I feel like
I dug it.
you all deserve the justice because you are doing wonderful things in the community, and you really are like the definition of perseverance and the resilience of the human spirit. So thank you all for joining us today. Paula, how do you
Yes.
know all these cool people? Like,
So Bridget and Jean and I all worked for the same financial company, and we're the same one you worked for, Solo, and we're very involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and other things like that. And I also, as you mentioned, Jean is in South Dakota. I supported many of the departments in South Dakota and my team did when I worked for that financial institution. And I actually don't know Khalil directly, but I know his mother. And so I've been friends with his mother for years. She's also a fellow Zeta Soror.
nice.
So I've been seeing her promotion of the American Heart Association and things of that nature. I've been seeing the stories she's been posting about Khalil. I was there praying when he was going through all of the changes and challenges he was going through as she solicited for prayers. And so I just felt this would be a great panel to have to tell their stories because they're not shy of telling them because they share them on social. So that's how I know all of these individuals. And so I would love for each of you actually, so that people get to know who you are and the great, great people that you are. Can you share your personal connection or experience, or even your story with organ donation or receiving a donation? And whoever would like to go first, by all means, go.
I can jump in because I forgot to put it in my intro, which seems probably a little bit of an oversight. But I'm a kidney donor, which feels very surreal to say out loud, to be honest.
That's awesome.
Organ donation had always been something that I felt like was the right thing to do. When I got my driver's license, you learn about, putting the little marker on there if you're willing to be a deceased organ donor. And even from that time, I didn't really think about living donation and what that would mean and what was possible in that realm because I was super young. I still like to think of myself as relatively young, but a few years ago, my sister was going through a pretty intense cancer journey, and she's doing great now. So I'll preface it with that. But there were lots of trips up to Mayo Clinic, and different members of our family would accompany her up there. And on one of those trips, I was up there with her, just waiting in the waiting room as she was having her stuff done. And I remembered a friend of mine saying, she was going through this process to become an organ donor potentially become a kidney donor for a friend who needed a kidney. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like,
super cool.
I really should do something like that. Like, that is incredibly powerful. What more could you do in this world than to give someone else the gift of life?
Yeah.
And at the time, I think at the time I was probably pregnant with my oldest kiddo. So it was one of those things where it's just, in the back of my head, a little nagging feeling. And as I was sitting there in the waiting room at Mayo, I remember her saying that Mayo had an incredible donor program. And I was up at Mayo in Rochester. And so as I was sitting in the waiting room, I was like, what does this even entail, right? Like most people have 2 kidneys. Most people only need 1. What does this process actually look like? And so I went online and started looking into the National Kidney Registry and Foundation, and then also information from Mayo. I was like, it doesn't seem that hard. Like, I'm pretty healthy. I could probably do this. And there's literally like an express interest form, as if you want to know about when the next model of car comes out. It's like, you're interested in organ donation. Give us your name and your email address and we'll reach out to you. Like, okay, sure. So I did that, and they connected me with a care professional.
That's cool.
They started walking me through these conversations of, well, this is a really big thing. I'm like, this can't be that big of a thing. They're like, no, this is a big thing. And like, do you really want to do this? Are you really ready? Do you know the impact? And started having these conversations with me. And as I'm kind of one of those people that once I get an idea in my head, it's there and I'm doing it and I'm all in.
Yeah.
So we started having the conversations, and conversations led to the appointments to see if I was qualified and healthy enough to be a donor. That led to okay, now you're going to go up for approval with the whole medical board that reviews these. And yes, you're a good candidate. All right, put me in the pool, see if I will match with anybody. Because I was a non-directed donor. I didn't know anyone who did a kidney. Went into the pool, and 10 days later had my match. A couple weeks later, up at Mayo Clinic for the procedure. So
it was so scary.
Not really. So I think the thing for me that was most reassuring, I spoke with a friend of a friend who had been a kidney donor, and she had children as well, or has children as well. And both of us had actually had a C-section. And she said, if you can make it through a C-section, you're fine. This will be like, she's like, you don't have a newborn to take care of afterwards. Like, you've already know what it's like to have that major of a procedure. You're going to be fine. So I wasn't incredibly nervous until literally right before they took me into the operating room. I was like, holy cow, I actually did this. Like, there was turning back then if I wanted to. You can always turn back up until the time of the procedure. But I was all in, and I was super excited. Everything went really well. This was back at Thanksgiving time in 2022. So I'm just about a year and a half out from donation. And it was an incredible experience. Biggest, most incredible thing I've ever done.
You're an incredible person.
A little bit about my journey.
My son is 3 too, like Eliza. Is it Eliza? It's Eliza, right?
Eliza, yeah.
And I always tell him, I say, son, what's being brave? He says, being scared, doing it anyway. And I felt like you were scared, but you did it anyway. And I just really appreciate your bravery, Bridget. That's awesome. Yeah. You saved a life, right, Gene?
Yes. We need more of you, Bridget.
Yeah, little do you know that Gene actually got one of yours, Bridget. This is the reveal. It was yours. So
I know that's not true. True.
So what's your story, Gene?
I actually was originally diagnosed. No family history, no specifics to what we look at as the two top leading causes of kidney disease is either hypertension or diabetes, neither one of those. I was in college and during finals and got weak and sick and went to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, I have some good news and some bad news. You're sick because of stress. The bad news is you have about 50% function of your kidneys.
Oh, wow.
So I was diagnosed with what was called FSGS, which is focal segmental glomerular sclerosis.
Wow.
I like to always joke it took me 2 years to figure out how to say it. So luckily I have some time to work on it. But I'm one of the lucky ones because I had about 9 years from the time I was diagnosed to the time of needing treatment. Where most people find out, it's kind of like, now you need to
die.
I vowed I would never do dialysis. So when we got to that point, I started looking for a living donor. My first donor, as you said earlier, solo that I've had 2. My first donor was my uncle.
That's awesome.
He incredible. Was a military man. Kind of that was his background. And in fact, a few years before, he told my parents he was going to be my donor. And my mom's like, you're too old to do this. But no, he's not. And was my first donor. Have an incredible relationship with him to this day. It's one thing I'm hoping, Bridget, you said you know who received it, I'm assuming is what you're saying. So hopefully you've been able to have that relationship with your recipient as well. But about a year and a half after the transplant, I ran into some complications and ultimately had a calcium deficiency seizure, which caused the kidney to fail. Ended up starting dialysis immediately and was told at that point it would be 10 to 13 years to find out.
Wow.
I actually got the call in 17 months.
No.
So I always say that I'm kind of one of the lucky ones in that perspective. The only thing that I know about the donor is he was 33 years old. It was cardiac arrest, Boston, Massachusetts. The family had requested no information about the recipients. So my second donor was a deceased donor. And that's kind of where I got into the part of advocating for patients, because I kind of have seen all aspects of it between living donor, deceased donor, dialysis, and that perspective. So happy to say that this September it'll be 15 years.
Nice. Congratulations.
Transplant. Thank you. So really excited about kind of just being able to have that additional lifetime that wouldn't have been possible had he nor his family made the decision.
That's incredible, Gene.
Wow.
And dialysis is no joke.
No.
My one of my buddies, best friends, I would even say at this point, I talk to him more than most folks. His wife was on the kidney transplant list for years. To your point, Gene, you were one of the lucky ones. She was on there for years. And dialysis is not just you go to a place to get a treatment. It's your whole life's different. You can't go anywhere. You have to worry about going to a spot. You're scared that the machine's not going to work. It just eats up your whole life. It's not just your body that needs help. Your mental also gets beat up just as bad, if not more. I can only imagine. So thank you for advocating for people like her. And Bridget, thank you for literally putting yourself through a C-section on the other side, right? To give people like Gene and her a second shot at life, to your point, Gene. That's freaking awesome.
So Solo, as you talk about mental, and as we've heard of a donor and someone receiving, Khalil's story, mentally, mentally, I'm quite sure had a lot of dynamics mentally for what you went through at so young. So why don't you go ahead and share your story?
Ooh, okay. Now this one can get a little long in the tooth, so let's hang on. All right.
All right.
So, I didn't have any issues all the way up until I was 21 years old. So, sports, I was in track, I was in swimming for 4 years of high school, varsity show choir, the works. So I really got to experience physicality at a younger age.
You look jacked.
I don't know about jacked, but I do some work here. I got a home gym and whatnot.
A little bit.
So I was working at a restaurant here in the Des Moines area at the time, and I just was a little short of breath, and I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't catch it. And so it felt like I was running when I was walking still. I didn't know what was happening, but I continued to try to serve my customers at that time until it just got to be a little bit too much. And I ended up laying onto the floor of a restaurant in the back, mind you. I don't know who's ever worked at a restaurant, but there's just some things we don't do. Yeah. Right. So that's where I was at, because I didn't have the energy to stand any longer. And my boss at the time said, well, hey, I think you might need to, get on out of here and go to the hospital. And at 21 years old, I mean, we're all, a little hard-headed, right? And so I wanted to kind of stand back and get in there, and I can tough this out. And so eventually she convinced me to go on home. And unfortunately, I'd had a buddy at the time that had passed about 2 or 3 weeks prior to that time. Because he had a asthma complication in the middle of the day and decided, hey, I'm going to go to the hospital tomorrow. I'm going to go there tomorrow. And tomorrow didn't exactly come. And so as I'm driving home, because I just was tired and exhausted, that's what ran through my mind. And I said, okay, let's do this. I drove myself to the hospital. I get there and they say, okay, well, we gave you steroid treatment. You should be able to breathe a little bit better. I'm like, oh, well, my mom always told me I had reactive airway disease. They're like, well, this is a hospital grade steroid here. If you have that, it'd be done. Okay, well, it means you're not going anywhere, sir. Sorry. You might have a blood clot in your lungs. It could be this, it could be that. And they're just starting to throw things left and right. We don't want to scare you, but we don't know what it is. So you're going to need to stay here. Anyways, as that story continues to complicate, that was day one in the hospital. It was March 31st of 2017. Now we're April Fools, right? April Fools, I get taken from one hospital because they had a echocardiogram done. And they said, well, your heart is one of the worst I've seen for your age. and it's about 3 times the size that it should be.
Oh,
This
wow.
facility can't deal with this. You're going to need to go somewhere else. Shipped by ambulance to another facility. I was there for about a week, and they gave me an external defibrillator. So it's a vest where you wear it. It has electrodes all on the outside to shock you if, in fact, you need so there's not sudden cardiac death, right? And that was on April 6th. So day one is March 31st, 2017. April 6th, you have this device on, and you've never been in the hospital before, never experienced illness and sickness at all. And then, and you know what? I actually had a stroke somewhere in here. And so my memory gets a little bit choppy. But I want to say it was somewhere late April or May, perhaps. I did have a stroke then, a pretty massive stroke, where my only deficiency now is balance and things like that. So that's one thing I have to really work on. And we just kept kind of going down the rabbit hole. We're getting all these solutions as they fix what they could from the stroke. I'm in the neuro unit, and now we have an implanted ICD. I believe that was April 20th, and it goes and goes, and eventually we're like, hey, we need to get you a what's called an LVAD, and that's a left ventricular assistance device, which is actually, they do a sternotomy, which they open up the chest, go ahead and attach it to the heart, and so it acts like a turbo. If anyone knows what like a turbo on a car is, that suction then provides the diffusion of blood all throughout the body. And so they plant that in, and then there's an external portion that is probably 2 to 3 times as big as someone's phone, but not a little thicker, but not wider. And then there are 2 large batteries, which are 4 times the size of someone's phone typically. And I used to put those in my pocket, and I had that from, I want to say, June 20 something, all the way up until my transplant, which I gave you an incorrect date. My bad. It was 2022. And that was in December of 2022. So I'm getting very near that 1.5 year mark.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Khalil, your story hits home. My brother was perfectly fine. Everything was fine. And then all of a sudden I get a call because he had multiple organ failure. They didn't know what was going on, but long story short, he had dilated cardiomyopathy. So same, right? An enlarged heart. His blood diffusion was just ridiculous. He needed to get the left ventricular assist device. He's in the process right now of trying to get on the transplant list to get a heart. So your journey is close to home for me, man. And how are you feeling? Like, is it possible for those folks out there that are listening that are in the same spot?
Oh, let me tell you, folks that are listening out there right now, I work out 4 to 5 days a week right now.
We're jacked.
Yep, built a home gym. Is all right on over there. A couple 100 pounds in weights. My buddy actually comes over almost once a day now at this point, and we'll get a workout in. And I have a break every now and then. I've actually talked to my doctors. For anyone who's like, oh my gosh, what, you just had a heart transplant? Yes, I've talked to them, and they said we're okay to go. It's just how you feel that day, right? And sometimes that does ebb and flow. Sometimes when those anti-rejection levels starting to get a little high from your medication dosage, which goes like this, you may not feel the best that day, and then you're ready to go get it the next day. So you fight for that consistency of well-being and how you feel.
That's amazing. We have a live attendee who actually put this quote out that he's heard before: don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here. And I believe this is a great segue into, can we talk a little bit about what are some of the misconceptions or myths that you might encounter as either being an organ donor or receiving a transplant or an organ? And again, whoever would like to chime in, go ahead and chime in first.
I would have to say the biggest misconception I hear very often is, have you begun to take on any of your donors' traits?
Are you seeing things
like that? Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, that is a pretty big misconception. I hear that often. do you have any cravings for different foods? And nope, not at all. You know, if anything, you know, my chest kind of pops every now and then if I do one of these, but it's really about it.
That's awesome.
No other difference.
Let me ask you this. Can organs be repoed like in that movie with Forrest Whitaker?
Woo!
You guys remember? You remember that movie Repo Man? I've done this 1,000 times. That was a wild movie.
I think, you know, I was incredibly uninformed when I went into this process.
Really?
I was like, this is just something I want to do. Fortunately, there are really great associations that will educate you, and no one will let you go through a donor process without knowing everything that you're doing. But, you know, I think for organ donation, even just since I've done it, the people I've talked to, they'll say, well, I'm too old, or, well, I won't be able to do the same things afterwards that I can do now. A lot of people say, well, I can never drink beer again if I donate a kidney. And I'm like, no, not true. Like I definitely enjoy a beer or two now and again. But, you know, I think the education part, right? Like there's so much that I think people don't go after certain things because they're not educated, right? So like, I'm not going to consider being an organ donor because there's a lot of unanswered questions that I have. I don't have the time to get all those answers, right? And I think one of the things that was really incredible to me as I was going through this process is I didn't understand how crazy impactful dialysis is for somebody who's in need of a kidney. I didn't understand how long the waiting lists are and how many people die waiting for a kidney. And then to think that, you know, this huge amount of the population is healthy enough to be a kidney donor, but they're too intimidated by the process, right? Like it is a major surgery, and like recovery's not a cakewalk, but it was extremely doable. And I think that there's just such a lack of education and awareness for people. And I think hearing stories, like that was one of the reasons why I agreed to come on here, is because when you hear people talk about it, I think it starts to hit home harder of, you know, maybe I should look into this, or, you know, I think it's just so important to get educated and understand the impacts of all of this.
One of the biggest things that I hear, Bridget, in the aspect, especially in the living donation piece, the people that I talk to, is they're always like, well, what if I need one later? You know, and the biggest thing is, you know, number one, you prioritized.
Yeah, you get a coupon, everybody.
You get an organ coupon
up on the list.
That's good.
Ultimately, if you are a donor and something goes wrong, you would ultimately get points or get moved up on the list to be able to qualify for a transplant.
Oh, that's incredible.
The other interesting piece to that, and I was telling Paula this earlier, I said I had a doctor who once gave me the statistic that once you've been approved to be a donor, the likelihood of something going wrong is the same as an appendectomy.
Yeah.
You've gone through all the testing and everything possible, and they're not going to take that kidney away from you if they think that something's going to go wrong.
That's a good point.
By the time you go through the process, it's the same as if you were having just a regular routine surgery at that point.
That is a great point.
Yeah. And I would say too, like again, just back to the myths and misconceptions. I mean, in terms of what's life like after, right? Yeah, after being an organ donor, it's the same. Like I will say I have a bigger motivation to drink more water because it's very important to stay hydrated. But I'm incredibly active, young kids, work out a lot, still can go out and celebrate and have a few drinks and be just fine. So literally the same life.
Is it the same though, Bridget? And I say that to say, like, when you look in the mirror, are you a little bit more just proud of yourself? Like you saved a life, like you did something big. Like when those legion of voices in our head, like all of us have, start screaming like, you ain't nothing and life is rough and you ain't got it. Like, is there a louder wolf of dissent that says, yeah, well, I cut out an organ to save someone's life. I made a difference because, there's a difference in the world because I'm here. Like, did that happen?
Not really. I don't know.
I feel like it should happen.
Maybe it's just me, like maybe I'm being too humble, but I pull it out on my siblings every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What are you doing with
I
your
was
life?
an organ donor, so
Yeah.
check yourself. No, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I'm kind of one of those people that's always chasing the next thing. Like I always wanted to have an impact, and I didn't know how that would be. I have a corporate job that I like, I'm very grateful for, I think I'm good at, but I was always looking for that bigger picture impact. And so for me, this was one of those ways. And I think after everything my sister went through, I was looking for a way to put some good karma back into the world, right?
Yeah.
She used up a lot of good karma, and I'm very, very glad that she did.
Yeah.
But I wanted to put that back out into the world too.
That's so good. We like to think as people, like we're the type that we go outside and we see our neighbor's house on fire, right? We're going to run in there, kick the door in and save the babies and even go back for the dog and But that's probably never going to happen. But we have every opportunity to look for someone's life on fire right now and making a sacrifice of your own personal well-being and health, because it is scary. Appendectomies, they can go wrong. Is it likely? No, but it can. And you put yourself at personal danger and peril to help and save another person. And I just think that that's the epitome of being a hero. And I just really appreciate folks like you that are willing to do that for other people, because we need more of yous in the world, Bridget. So if you didn't look at yourself any different, at least remember these words tonight and be like, you know what? Good job. I did do something great.
Thank you.
So I have to ask, I know for you all, as either giving a organ or receiving one, there are things that you go through mentally, emotionally, physically. But what did your family, your friends also go through on the other side, watching you go through all of that? Now, Jean, I actually saw your call outs on Facebook, and I followed a lot of your journey actually on Facebook as you went through your process. But I'm quite sure your supporters, Khalil, your mom, Bridget, your partner, Jean, your family, your supporters, what did they go through, or how tough was it for them? And what advice would you give to individuals who are supporting family and friends that are either receiving an organ or given an organ?
That's a good question.
I think a big one is patience. I know that probably, one of the biggest things, and Khalil, you might understand this a little bit more too, but the moment you have a transplant, you're not cured.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes I think that was a little bit of a struggle right after, in the aspect of we went through all this and we got there, and then you're trying to figure out the anti-rejection drugs and the immune suppressors, and you're trying to figure out making sure that you're healthy and making sure it's not literally a flip of the switch the moment the transplant happens that, oh, everything's great. So I think that's the one thing that I would recommend, or I like to tell patients to be prepared for, is that, we use the example a lot of times when we talk about like dialysis patients, that when you have your transplant after dialysis, really for the first 3 to 6 months, your schedule is not going to change a whole lot. You're still going to have doctor's appointments. You're still going to have this perspective of it. So, that was the one thing that I had a great support system within my family and my friends. I tell the story. Solo, you talked about your friend's wife who was doing dialysis. The process of dialysis literally is the filtering of your blood to take fluid or water out. So in a certain way, you're being dehydrated. I mean, is kind of the short answer. You're really not, but it's doing the function of a kidney for you. I tell this story a lot, kind of jokingly, that when there got to a point when I was doing dialysis that I would get weak. And I was still working for the financial industry that I did, or the financial company that I did at the time. And I would leave dialysis and go to work.
Oh.
And I would call a friend of mine and tell them, hey, could you do me a favor? And can you run down to the cafeteria and grab a salt shaker?
Get some electrolytes back in your system.
What's that?
You can get some electrolytes back in your system.
That's exactly what it is. Because if they take too much water off, or you're starting to feel lightheaded, the best way to do is to get something in your system. I've now learned over years. Now they talk about pickle juice. I'm like, that would have been so much nicer 15 years ago to know pickle juice. But yeah, so I would take a glass of water and just put a little salt in it to get myself back. And it was funny because that one day he asked me, he's like, why are you asking for this? And I explained it. And he's like, you're no longer going to call me when you're driving to work to ask me to do this. The salt shaker is not leaving your desk.
Yeah, like it's staying here. Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so I mean, it's the biggest thing is, and the one thing I guess I appreciated most in my support system, and still to this day, I mean, as a kidney, I'm still a kidney patient. I'm a transplant recipient, but I'm still a kidney patient, is the understanding of there are still ups and downs, and understanding that as a family and loved ones, to know that it's not just a flip of the switch and everything's back to normal.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Wow. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know how I'm going to match it.
Got this, Khalil.
But one of the thoughts that I have is I'd have to say around presence and somebody being there for you, right? Because in today's world where we have social media networks that we're able to reach people from across the planet, actually being there, being in the hospital room, going on that daily walk, whatever that is, helping them with the workout routine, or whether it's a medication bundle, helping them get those things together, being there physically for somebody is something that's huge. For me, I had to sit in the hospital for months. I believe it was 4.5 months at one point in time. And so being, my dad and mom, they both basically moved into my room there. So they both had a hotel for months. And they would come and visit, and they would communicate and alternate. They had buddies and friends and honestly just acquaintances who I didn't know paid enough attention to come out and see me, 2 hours away. So those are the things that leave an indelible impact with whoever the person is that's sitting in the bed, that's going through the mental ups and downs, because that's something that you really can't help with, right? You can help inspire, you can help with ideas, maybe tips or tricks, but really someone has to deal with these things on their own. And it takes that being with self and silence in order to accomplish that.
That's awesome. Can I ask, how'd you guys get through it?
Oh, I got that for you.
Like, bro, I feel picked on dealing with my financial ledger and the stress of kids screaming and like work getting heavy. And you all sat in the hospital for 4.5 months where your heart was failing and you didn't know if you're going to live the next day. Like, how'd you get through that, man?
Well, I will say I was pretty confident on living the next day because I was in the hospital. So if something goes wrong,
hey, they're going to keep you alive, right?
With tubes everywhere, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but when we're talking about the actual transplant itself, there is always a risk there, right? But how do you stay up when really tough emotional times fall on you? Your scale of what moves you emotionally and as a person tends to shift a little bit. It tends to evolve. So there are little things that used to upset, bother, or ruffle the feathers in the day no longer do anymore, right? Yeah. That person cutting you off, I'll smile and turn up the music and keep going, right? And then turn and keep moving. I mean, you're not cursing, you're not angry, so if there are things in your life which are providing you pressure, that pressure doesn't really move you. There's another side to that is, now you need to make sure that you really are on yourself to do things, because the scale of consequence doesn't affect me any longer. So, I'm gonna do this if you don't do that. Okay, that's good. So you're so you have to fight with that in order to kind of stay in the game, especially at 28 years old, in the rat race, so to speak, of trying to go, because that's what we usually do. but it's almost like you've been removed from it, detached a little bit. And
Yeah.
so you have to find moments to really sink yourself back in with the flow of people, because that's what people do. But then you have to recognize where you're actually at and be able to kind of turn it off, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So it's like your perspective just shifts.
Your
whole perspective on stuff
your perspective shifts. And what you do is you have to step in and out of that perspective. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think of like a line, like a 2D object, 2D line, and you're stepping in and out of it. So I step in to deal with and to have the hustle and bustle. Oh, we got to get this report in because this is going to happen. And oh, the world's going to end if this doesn't go down. But in actuality, somewhere in here, the business blows up. We'll build a new one.
Yeah.
You lose this house. Hey, you got to work for a little while, but you get a new one. As long as you're alive.
Transplant list, and we'll get it. Like
exactly.
We did it again. We'll do it again.
Exactly. I've been through so much, and I'll do it all again.
And
so it's one foot in front of the other, day by day. That's what gets you through those times and that ebb and flow.
It's funny you said that. I heard about this like super elite level of business owners that are just balling. And the criteria to get in this mastermind is you have to have had $10 million+ lost it all, and then built it up again. Like that, like knowing that $10 million and losing it and building it gives you something different than just having it in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like you had an entire life, almost lost it all and built it up again. It like gives you this resilience that I'm hearing that you have, which is awesome. Like Gene, any comments on that?
Well, and I think one of the biggest things with, at least with my experience and in other patients that I've talked to, the one thing that I always advocate is being honest with yourself. I did what I called the grin and nod. I use that analogy a lot of like, when people are around, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But let me get home by myself and have my breakdowns and whatever I need to do. And I think to a point that's okay. But as long as you're still ultimately being honest with yourself and the people around you of where you're at, to make sure that when you get to that point of where we are now post-transplant, that you can have that resurge back into your life and the perspective, and not be stuck where you were in your treatment world or in the waiting for the transplant, or because I think sometimes, unfortunately, there are people that just kind of sit in that cycle. And so one of the things that, and I talk about when I talk with patients and things, is number one, being honest with yourself, and number one, being honest with, even with your medical team. One of the biggest things that I originally said, when I started talking about a little bit about mental health amongst kidney patients, is one of the biggest first questions you get asked as a clinical question is, have you ever sought psychiatric help? It's a clinical question. It's like being asked, do you feel safe at home?
Yeah.
However, as a kidney patient, there is a life expectancy of a transplant. So there is a chance that you need to have one again in your life. And the question is, so if I'm having psychological issues or I'm struggling, who do I talk to? Because the people that I need to talk to ultimately are going to decide if I get to have another one. And that's where, a lot of times when I talk to patients, it's like, that's not, being 15 years removed, I can have that conversation that I understand now that was a clinical question and not going to be a deciding factor on whether or not I got a transplant, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Wow. How about you, Bridget? When your family heard that you were going to donate a kidney and then you go through the process, what was that like for you?
Well, it was good that my mom was all the way gray already, because I think she would have had a little more gray, right? Like she had just gotten one of her kids through this huge struggle with cancer. And then I come along and I'm like, I'm going to give away my kidney. And she's like, I'm sorry. No.
Just relax.
We've had enough time at Mayo Clinic. Like we don't need to be going back there.
Mm-hmm.
But, everyone was really supportive. And I think, it is a big decision to make, to be an organ donor. And I think if you are around someone who's trying to make that decision I think you have to respect that they are already considering all aspects of that decision. So I think the best thing that you can do is to be really supportive. I mean, the person who, had the biggest leg to stand on to not be supportive would have been my partner, right? We had at the time, our oldest daughter was 4 and our youngest wasn't yet 2. And, for 4 weeks or however long after the procedure, you can't lift more than 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get our not yet 2-year-old into the car seat in the car. I couldn't lift her into the bathtub. So there was a lot at home that my partner was going to have to pick up the slack for. But she never once faltered. She was always supportive. And if this is something that you want to do, how can I argue against that? And I think that was, Khalil talked about perspective a lot. And that was one of the things that, as I was going through this process, time and time again, they'll ask you, like, are you sure this is something that you want to do? And I just kept saying to myself, why not? And there is literally, like, I was healthy, I was young, I was able, like, in the position to do this. There was no good answer that I could give to why not? Why not be an organ donor? Why not save someone's life? When you phrase it that way, it's really hard to come up with a good answer to why not save this person's life, right? Everybody's busy. Everybody has, crazy family life. But I couldn't answer that. I couldn't come up with a good reason for why not. So I think that perspective was hugely important to me.
That's awesome.
So to all of you who have been a part of this process, looking ahead, right? What are your hopes and aspirations for the future of organ donation and transplantation?
Let me start that off. So one of the thoughts that because I had a lot of conversations. I'm in the hospital for 4.5 months.
Yeah,
right?
You were in there.
Yeah, I was in there. I mean, I was so in there. I was cool with the nurses. I mean, like, it was like, hey, what you guys doing over there? We're working today. Because I had nothing but video games and TV shows, right? So it's hard to think, what if, with 3D printing, right, we're able to take a material and we're able to print said material in whatever that matter is, right? And so could you not, with more advanced technology, looking at quantum computing that's eventually going to be coming out pretty soon, I believe one may even already be made, then we may be able to have something like that pretty darn soon. Now we're not looking at years being on a transplant list. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of money, sure. Take some of, get a biopsy and then they'll be able to create it. Might be months as opposed to years, right?
It's crazy to think about that. It's a good point. Quantum computing with AI, we could probably figure it out.
Exactly.
That's cool.
I hope more people donate. I think, there's a lot of healthy people walking around with 2 kidneys and most people only need 1. And I think that I think there's a lot of people out there searching for, how do I make a difference, right? I think a lot of people ask themselves that question every single day. And I hope more people get educated around the donor process and realize this is a tangible way that you can make a difference. Like you said, Solo, the chances of my neighbor's house catching on fire and me getting to be the hero, not very high.
Not gonna happen.
And even then, I'm calling the fire department.
No, you do it, Bridget. You kick the door in. You're saving the dog and the kids. You're doing it.
I'm going to call the fire department first, at least. But this is something that people can do. So I hope more people become educated and that those wait lists are no longer 13 years, 15 years long.
And even if it's not living donors, like, everybody should be at least, if something happens, God forbid, cardiac arrest, right, Gene? Like, that kidney that you don't need will go to somebody to make the world a better place. Like Antonio said, like, leave the organs here. They're not needed where you're going next.
I think one of the biggest, to Bridget's point, one of the biggest gaps we have right now is education. And I mean, and even not just in the aspect of living donors for kidney, but donors as a whole. I had a doctor once ask me about that, what my thoughts were on there was originally a discussion about possibly reimbursing living donors at one point.
Ooh.
And the question was, what was my thought? And I said, we don't need to if we would just educate. Let's go 40 years ago and talk about donating blood or plasma or other things that now are a daily occurrence to people who donate. Why couldn't kidney be in that same field?
Yeah.
I had a nephrologist, former nephrologist of mine, who was a big Trekkie, and he said, someday I'm going to give you a pill that you can swallow and grow your own kidney. Would love to get to that point. I don't know that we ever will. But you know, I think the biggest thing, at least in the world of kidney, we've seen a lot of advancements in the last 3 to 4 years, which has been a long time coming in this industry. And I'm hoping, you know, in the sake of in the sake of organs as a whole, of some of these advancements that are being made, and even, you know, we're talking, you know, in the last couple of years, I think it's been synthetic lungs. You know, what can be done to go across the board. So I think, as long to Khalil's point of looking at technology and how can we continue to be better, and ultimately erase that list. Because I mean, right now there's over 100,000 people waiting for organs.
That's crazy.
So as you talk about education, this question is for Khalil and Jean directly, as I know that you both are really huge advocates and out there educating and speaking. Where can people find out or get more education on kidney donations and heart transplants? If they just want to get that understanding. This is Donor Awareness Month. So where can they go? Where can they start?
The American Heart Association, if we're talking about hearts specifically, is going to be probably the number one that I would point someone to. But also in my self-education, I really do use Google a whole heck of a lot. And I will Google something, and then I will find a legit source, such as a Mayo Clinic or something like that. I will find a study. So, you know, 2008, 2018, 2019, pretty recent studies about whatever it is that I need to get some research on, and read the 20-page, 40-page document, and you will be hyper educated on whatever it is that, and so it's a little general, because one is the American Heart Association. We have a source, and then the other is use your knowledge and get out there and use some technology and get answers.
See, Khalil, I could have told you were going to make it, bro. Jump on and read some NCBI PubMed articles and educate yourself. Like, dang, this guy's on it. You know, sometimes I will, I'll cut corners. I'll like copy, paste it into Chat GPT. It's like, Chat GPT, give me a summary.
It is what it is. Sometimes you do a scam. That's all right. But at the end of the day, as long as you're going to the source, find your information. Oh my gosh, the internet has way too much on it that can get you off track.
Yeah, you'll be eating dryer pods trying to cure your ailments.
Right, and there are backyard experts to everything these days. So you really need to watch what your intake is. So find something that's legit and get out there and educate yourself.
To his point, if you're talking National Kidney Foundation, we're talking a lot about right now, both living donation and deceased donation, both. We have some great programs out there, education programs, some great websites. Check them out. The other big thing is, I don't know that we can go without saying, because it is National Donor Month, is Donate Life across the country. They're the biggest advocates for making sure that you're checking that box on your driver's license. And so they're the ones who ultimately could help if you're looking for more information about, or some of those myths that you're looking at trying to bust in the aspect of what it's like to be a donor after you're gone.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So in case you didn't catch that, some resources: American Heart Association, if you want to specifically focus on heart transplant; the National Kidney Foundation, if you want to specifically focus on kidneys. Google is your friend. Just make sure that you get it from a legitimate source when you look at that and read those articles. And then Donate Life across the country is another great resource, not only to help you get that on your driver's license, but also to potentially navigate you to other resources to get that education as well. And so we are coming up on time. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you all for sharing your stories. But how can individuals stay connected with all three of you?
Oh, y'all look good.
Don't they? Oh,
I should have
pictures.
Right on.
Yes.
So for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Khalil Adams, and that actually is the exact same photo. Also Facebook, I'll tend to share things on there a little bit more, but I'm not as much of a social media guy these days. But I have a lot out there. You'll see the stories, mostly motivational stuff. It's, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and let's go get it for another day is what you'll find I'm posting.
Awesome.
Awesome. How about you, Gene? Outside of LinkedIn, any other places?
You can find me on Facebook, Gene Dickey. It's where I post actually quite a lot about the work that I'm doing and some of that aspect. The other thing is, as you mentioned earlier, I'm working on doing some advocacy and public speaking. There is a website out there. It's genealland.com. If you want to check that out, that also then will connect you to email if you want to reach out that way as well.
You said Gene L&D?
Allen, sorry, ALLEN.
Gene Allen D.
Yeah. .com.
.com.
Nice.
Amazing.
I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm mostly just busy taking care of these kids, guys.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can find me there,
you're
but
on the mommy forums, you're all over it, That's awesome.
I love this comment we got from the audience as well. Again, from Antonio. This is a good comment. You can always start small too. You may not want to donate an organ right now, but you can donate blood or plasma as well until you feel more comfortable to go big. There are some of us like myself who cannot donate blood, unfortunately, and because of the blood type I have, and I have abnormal stuff going on, y'all. But if you can, it's a great thing. It's a great thing to do as well. So yeah, you don't necessarily always have to go big. You can start small. And that to me is still not even starting small. You don't know whose life that blood might save.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start by doing something if this is something that you choose that you want to do. So before I throw up our social, are there any last words that any of you all would like to give?
I would say, Paula, we know why you can't get blood. Like, you're allergic to kryptonite. You leap tall buildings in a single bound. They hit that needle and it just bends. We get it. Like, Paula's my superhero. So I appreciate
so let me dispel that myth really quick. And I'll be vulnerable and say the reason actually I can't get blood is because of my anemia and I have to sickle cell trait. And so I have just abnormal blood stuff going on. And when I tried to give blood when I was in college, I pretty much
passed out.
Almost passed. Right now. I was almost gone. Almost. They saved me before I hit the pass out and hit the floor, but it was pretty much like,
They
and actually
gave you your blood back as the donor.
It was. But you know what? Even then, I still didn't know at that point in time I was anemic or had the sickle cell trait. I found out when I was pregnant with my twins that was what was going on there. So unfortunately, I cannot give, but I know there's many who do. I tried. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. Just didn't work. So any last thoughts from anybody before we call it a wrap?
I would just say have the conversation. If you're curious, reach out. The thing that helped me the most when I was considering being a kidney donor was talking with another donor and listening to her go through the experience. I called her asking for, hey, did you experience this or what was this like? And hey, afterwards, could you still do this okay? And that was a great resource for me. So there's tons of groups out there and tons of great stories. So, tune in. So, thanks to everybody who listened to this one. I think that's a great first step.
That's awesome. Great advice.
Anyone else? If not, it's okay because we gave a lot of information. I mean, I get it. We gave a lot. And I might have y'all back just to hear where you are in your journey. Because as you said, just because you got the transplant or the organ, that doesn't mean that the work doesn't stop. You're still on a journey. And so I get it. But for those who are tuning in, that's a wrap for us for this evening. I do want to show our social details. As you know, solo isn't anywhere. He sometimes might show up on LinkedIn.
Social
but
media
even then-
ninja. I hit a smoke
Yeah.
bomb after these podcasts and disappear.
Yeah, he's not on social, but here are all the places that you can find us. We definitely hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. Thank you for sharing your personal stories. It was very engaging and I enjoyed it. And thank you for those who were commenting, liking, all of that. We love it. But to keep these conversations going, please go ahead and subscribe to these channels and turn on notifications, not only to know when we go live, but you can always comment at any point of time and we'll make sure that we get an answer to you. And remember, as Solo always says, for each one, reach one, teach one. Also, when you know better, do better. We know better today, so let's continue to do better. And with that, we will see you all next time. You would think I'd have my stuff together, but I don't.
Hey, it sounded smooth. I thought you were about to hit it in the outro. I was like, man,
we about to. We about to. Jean, Khalil, and Bridget, Solo, remember, stay on afterwards. But for everyone else, have a great evening and catch you next month.
See ya.